Long before the floodwaters rose to cleanse the earth, there lived a man who walked so closely with God that his very existence bridged heaven and earth. This man was Enoch, the seventh from Adam, whose righteousness caught the attention of the Almighty. Unlike other mortals who would taste death, Enoch was chosen for something extraordinary: to witness secrets that angels themselves kept hidden, to journey through realms beyond human understanding, and to become God's messenger between two worlds. His story begins with a divine calling that would change not only his destiny, but reveal the cosmic drama unfolding behind the veil of earthly existence. In the first chapter of his Revelations, Enoch describes his extraordinary calling. The words of the blessing of Enoch, wherewith he blessed the elect and righteous, who will be living in the day of tribulation, when all the wicked and godless are to be removed. And he took up his parable and said, Enoch, a righteous man, whose eyes were opened by God, saw the vision of the Holy One in the heavens, which the angels showed me, and from them I heard everything. And from them I understood as I saw, but not for this generation, but for a remote one. God opened Enoch's spiritual eyes in ways no human had ever experienced. Suddenly, the boundary between the physical and spiritual worlds dissolved before him. Angels appeared, not as distant, mysterious beings, but as his guides and teachers. These heavenly messengers led him through what he would later describe as 7 levels of heaven, each more glorious and terrifying than the last. As Enoch ascended through these celestial spheres, he encountered guardian angels who had watched over creation since its beginning. These weren't the fallen ones who would later bring corruption to earth, but faithful servants of the Most High who had maintained their holy stations. They showed him wonders that human language could barely describe: the throne room of God, the storehouse of winds, the treasury of snow and hail, and the foundations upon which the entire universe rested. The angels spoke to Enoch not in riddles or parables, but with crystal clarity about things that were, things that are, and things that would come to pass. They revealed that his journey had a specific purpose. He was to become a witness to both heaven's glory and the terrible rebellion that was about to unfold on earth. This wasn't merely a spiritual experience for his own benefit, but preparation for the most important mission any human had ever received. Through these initial visions, Enoch learned that the spiritual realm operated by laws just as fixed as those governing the physical world. Every star had its course, every wind its boundary, every angel its appointed task. This divine order would soon be shattered by rebellion, making Enoch's role as witness and messenger all the more crucial. The archangels who guided Enoch through the heavenly realms began revealing cosmic secrets that had been hidden since the foundation of the world. They showed him how God had spoken creation into existence, not as a simple command, but as an intricate symphony of divine power that established every law governing the universe. Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and Uriel, the 4 archangels who stood closest to God's throne, took turns explaining the mysteries of creation to their human student. They revealed how the earth was positioned at the center of God's cosmic design, held in place by invisible pillars that extended down into the great deep. The foundations of the earth weren't random geological formations, but carefully placed supports that demonstrated God's architectural mastery. The angels explained how light and darkness had been separated not just in time, but in essence. Light representing God's holiness and truth, darkness representing the absence of divine presence. They showed Enoch the chambers where winds were stored, each type serving a specific purpose in God's maintenance of the world. Some winds brought rain for blessing, others brought judgment and destruction. Enoch learned about the paths of the sun and moon, how their courses had been established to mark times and seasons for humanity. The stars weren't random points of light, but each had been positioned by God's own hand to serve as signs for those who understood their language. This knowledge would later prove crucial when some angels would teach forbidden astronomical secrets to corrupt mankind. The archangels revealed the structure of the heavens themselves, not just one heaven, but multiple levels, each serving different purposes in God's cosmic administration. The highest heaven contained God's throne, surrounded by creatures whose sole purpose was worship. Lower heavens housed the angels responsible for various aspects of creation's maintenance. Most significantly, the angels revealed to Enoch the principle of divine order that governed all existence. Every created being had a designated place and purpose, and happiness came from fulfilling that role. This cosmic order would soon be challenged by angels who desired to abandon their assigned positions, leading to consequences that would affect all creation. As Enoch continued his celestial education, the angels revealed a disturbing development that was already beginning to unfold on earth. A group of powerful angels known as the Watchers, originally assigned to observe and guard humanity, had begun to harbor forbidden desires for human women. The Book of Enoch provides the specific details of this rebellion in chapter 6. And it came to pass, when the children of men had multiplied, that in those days were born unto them beautiful and comely daughters. And the angels, the children of the heaven, saw and lusted after them, and said to one another, Come, let us choose us wives from among the children of men, and beget us children. The leader of this rebellious group was an angel named Shemihazah, whose name ironically meant, My name has seen, referring to his constant sight of God. Yet this angel who had beheld God's glory was now planning the greatest act of cosmic treason. Aware of the magnitude of what he was proposing, Shemihazah expressed his fears to his fellow conspirators. I fear ye will not indeed agree to do this deed, and I alone shall have to pay the penalty of a great sin. But the other angels, equally consumed by lust, encouraged him to proceed. They made a pact that would echo through history. Let us all swear an oath, and all bind ourselves by mutual imprecations, not to abandon this plan, but to do this thing. This wasn't a momentary lapse in judgment, but a calculated decision to rebel against their Creator. 200 angels participated in this oath of rebellion. They chose Mount Hermon as their meeting place, and the very mountain seemed to shudder under the weight of their blasphemous vow. The text records, And they were in all 200, who descended in the days of Jared on the summit of Mount Hermon, and they called it Mount Hermon, because they had sworn and bound themselves by mutual imprecations upon it. The angels' names are carefully recorded, revealing both their former glory and their coming shame. Besides Shemihazah, there was Arachiel, who would teach forbidden signs of the earth, Armaros, who would reveal the solving of enchantments, and Azazel, who would become the most corrupting influence of all. Each name told a story of power that would be perverted, wisdom that would be misused, and glory that would be forever tarnished. This rebellion represented more than sexual impropriety. It was a complete abandonment of divine order. These angels were leaving their assigned posts, abandoning their heavenly nature, and seeking to create a hybrid race that had no place in God's plan. The consequences would prove catastrophic for both heaven and earth. The unholy union between the fallen Watchers and human women produced offspring that defied the natural order of creation. These beings, known as the Nephilim or giants, represented a corruption of both angelic and human nature. Their very existence was an abomination that would bring violence and chaos to the entire world. Chapter 7 of the Book of Enoch describes their unnatural characteristics, and all the others together with them took unto themselves wives, and each chose for himself one, and they began to go in unto them, and to defile themselves with them. And they taught them charms and enchantments, and the cutting of roots, and made them acquainted with plants. And they became pregnant, and they bare great giants, whose height was 3,000 ells. These giants weren't merely tall humans. They were beings whose size and appetites were beyond anything the world had ever seen. 3,000 ells would make them approximately 4,500 feet tall, though some scholars suggest this might be a copying error, and they were perhaps 300 cubits, still making them giants of enormous proportions. Regardless of their exact height, they were creatures whose physical presence dominated the landscape. But their size was only the beginning of the problem. The giants possessed appetites that matched their enormous bodies, who consumed all the acquisitions of men, and when men could no longer sustain them, the giants turned against them and devoured mankind. What had begun as supernatural beings living among humans quickly devolved into predators, consuming their human neighbors. The violence escalated as the giants began turning on each other, and they began to sin against birds and beasts and reptiles and fish, and to devour one another's flesh and drink the blood. The natural order that God had established, where each creature had its place in the food chain, was completely overturned. These hybrid beings recognized no boundaries, consumed everything in their path, and brought a level of violence to Earth that had never existed before. The Nephilim weren't content with physical destruction alone. Having inherited supernatural knowledge from their angelic fathers, they used this wisdom for evil purposes. They established themselves as gods among humans, demanding worship and sacrifice. Their very presence corrupted the moral atmosphere of the earth, making violence and rebellion seem normal and acceptable. Genesis chapter 6 confirms this escalation of evil. The earth also was corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. And God looked upon the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth. The Nephilim had succeeded in corrupting not just their immediate environment, but the entire moral foundation of human civilization. As violence and corruption spread across the earth through the influence of the giants and their angelic fathers, the blood of innocent victims began crying out to heaven for justice. This wasn't merely metaphorical language. Enoch learned that the very ground was absorbing the blood of the righteous, and their cries were ascending directly to God's throne. Chapter 8 of the book of Enoch records this cosmic complaint. And now behold, the souls of those who have died are crying and making their suit to the gates of heaven, and their lamentations have ascended, and cannot cease because of the lawless deeds which are wrought on the earth. The spiritual realm was being flooded with the prayers and pleas of those suffering under the oppression of the giants and the corrupted knowledge spread by the fallen angels. These weren't general prayers for help, but specific accusations against the Watchers and their offspring. The souls of the righteous dead were calling for divine justice, asking why God was allowing such evil to continue unchecked. Their cries reached the 4 archangels who stood closest to God's throne: Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and Uriel. The archangels brought these complaints directly before the Almighty, and they said to the Lord of the rulers, "He is Lord of lords, and God of gods, and King of kings, and the seat of his glory stands unto all the generations of the world, and thy name is holy and blessed and glorious unto all the generations of the world. Thou hast made all things, and power over all things hast thou, and all things are naked and open in thy sight, and thou seest all things, and nothing can hide itself from thee." The archangel's petition continued with specific charges against the fallen watchers. "Thou seest what Azazel hath done, who hath taught all unrighteousness on earth, and revealed the eternal secrets which were preserved in heaven, which men were striving to learn. And Shemihazar, to whom thou hast given authority to bear rule over his associates. And they have gone to the daughters of men upon the earth, and have slept with the women, and have defiled themselves, and revealed to them all kinds of sins." This wasn't just a report about misconduct. It was a formal indictment before the highest court in the universe. The archangels were acting as prosecutors, presenting evidence of cosmic treason that demanded immediate judgment. They pointed out that the fallen angels hadn't just sinned themselves, but had corrupted the entire human race by teaching forbidden knowledge. The intercession of the archangels demonstrated that even in the midst of rebellion and chaos, God's justice system continued to function. The cries of the oppressed weren't falling on deaf ears, but were being heard, recorded, and prepared for final judgment. Justice was coming, even if it seemed delayed from an earthly perspective. God's response to the archangel's petition was swift and decisive. Rather than allow the corruption to continue spreading, the Almighty pronounced specific judgments on each of the main perpetrators. These weren't random punishments, but carefully designed consequences that would address both the immediate crisis and establish precedent for all future rebellions. To the archangel Raphael, God gave specific instructions regarding Azazel, who had become the chief teacher of forbidden knowledge. And again, the Lord said to Raphael, "Bind Azazel hand and foot, and cast him into the darkness, and make an opening in the desert, which is in Dudael, and cast him therein, and place upon him rough and jagged rocks, and cover him with darkness, and let him abide there forever, and cover his face that he may not see light." This punishment was designed to reverse everything Azazel had done. He who had revealed hidden knowledge would be hidden himself. He who had brought forbidden light to humanity would be covered in eternal darkness. The rough and jagged rocks would ensure his imprisonment was not just confinement, but continuous torment. Gabriel received orders concerning the hybrid offspring. And to Gabriel said the Lord, "Proceed against the biters and the reprobates, and against the children of fornication, and destroy the children of fornication and the children of the watchers from amongst men, and cause them to go forth. Send them one against the other, that they may destroy each other in battle." The giants would be turned against each other, destroying themselves through the same violence they had brought to the world. Michael was commanded to bind Shemihazar and his associates. And to Michael said the Lord, "Go, bind Shemihazar and his associates, who have united themselves with women so as to have defiled themselves with them in all their uncleanness. And when their sons have slain one another, and they have seen the destruction of their beloved ones, bind them fast for 70 generations in the valleys of the earth, till the day of their judgment and of their consummation, till the judgment that is forever and ever is consummated." Uriel received perhaps the most significant assignment, warning Noah about the coming flood. And to Uriel said the Lord, "Go to Noah and tell him in my name, hide thyself, and reveal to him the end that is approaching, that the whole earth will be destroyed, and a deluge is about to come upon the whole earth, and will destroy all that is on it." This judgment would cleanse the earth of the corruption, but preserve a righteous remnant. These pronouncements established that while God's mercy is great, his justice is absolute. The fallen angels had corrupted his creation, and the penalty would be complete separation from his presence until the final judgment. The flood would serve as both punishment for wickedness and purification for a new beginning. Even as God pronounced judgment on the corruption of his day, he granted Enoch visions of restoration that extended far beyond the immediate crisis. These weren't just promises of recovery from the flood, but glimpses into the ultimate redemption of all creation through God's eternal plan. In chapter 10, after detailing the judgments on the fallen angels, the text continues, "And destroy all the spirits of the reprobate and the children of the watchers, because they have wronged mankind. Destroy all wrong from the face of the earth, and let every evil work come to an end. And let the plant of righteousness and truth appear, and it shall prove a blessing. The works of righteousness and truth shall be planted in truth and joy for evermore. This vision showed Enoch that the current judgment wasn't an end, but a beginning. God was planning to plant a new kind of righteousness in the earth, not just the absence of evil, but the positive presence of divine truth that would grow and flourish. This planted righteousness would be different from anything that had existed before. Enoch saw that the restoration would affect not just humanity, but all creation. And then shall all the righteous escape, and shall live till they beget thousands of children. And all the days of their youth and their old age shall they complete in peace. And then shall the whole earth be tilled in righteousness, and shall all be planted with trees, and be full of blessing. The vision extended even further into the future, showing a time when the very nature of the earth would be transformed. And all desirable trees shall be planted on it, and they shall plant vines on it, and the vine which they plant thereon shall yield wine in abundance. And as for all the seed which is sown thereon, each measure of it shall bear 1,000, and each measure of olives shall yield 10 presses of oil. But the most remarkable part of Enoch's vision was seeing how this restoration would affect the relationship between God and humanity. And cleanse thou the earth from all oppression, and from all unrighteousness, and from all sin, and from all godlessness, and all the uncleanness that is wrought upon the earth destroy from off the earth, and all the children of men shall become righteous, and all nations shall offer adoration, and shall praise me, and all shall worship me. This wasn't just recovery from a temporary setback, but God's master plan reaching its ultimate fulfillment. Enoch saw that what appeared to be a crisis was actually part of a larger story of redemption that would culminate in perfect harmony between heaven and earth. After receiving these extraordinary visions of judgment and restoration, Enoch discovered that his role was far from passive. God was commissioning him to serve as his messenger, carrying divine revelations not only to his own generation but to all future ages. This calling would make him unique among all humans who had ever lived. Chapter 12 begins with Enoch's formal commissioning. Before these things, Enoch was hidden, and no one of the children of men knew where he was hidden and where he abode, and what had become of him, and his activities had to do with the watchers, and his days were with the holy ones. God had been preparing Enoch in secret, teaching him through direct contact with holy angels while hiding him from the corruption spreading across the earth. The fallen watchers, recognizing Enoch's special relationship with God, approached him with a desperate request. And it came to pass, when the children of men had multiplied, that in those days were born unto them beautiful and comely daughters. Then I heard the voice of the Holy One saying, Enoch, thou scribe of righteousness, go, declare to the watchers of the heaven who have left the high heaven, the holy eternal place, and have defiled themselves with women, and have done as the children of earth do, and have taken unto themselves wives. Ye have wrought great destruction on the earth. But before Enoch could carry God's message to the fallen angels, they made their own request, and they besought me to draw up a petition for them, that they might find forgiveness, and to read their petition in the presence of the Lord of heaven. For from thenceforward they could not speak with him nor lift up their eyes to heaven for shame of their sins for which they had been condemned. Enoch wrote their petition and attempted to present it to God, but the answer was not what the fallen angels hoped to hear. And I went off and sat down at the waters of Dan, in the land of Dan, to the south of the west of Hermon. I read their petition till I fell asleep. And behold, a dream came to me, and visions fell down upon me, and I saw visions of chastisement, and a voice came bidding me to tell it to the sons of heaven, and reprimand them. The message Enoch received was clear and final. And now, go, say to the watchers who have sent thee to intercede for them, you should intercede for men, and not men for you. Wherefore have ye left the high, holy, and eternal heaven, and lain? with women, and defiled yourselves with the daughters of men, and taken to yourselves wives, and done like the children of earth, and begotten giants as your sons. And though ye were holy, spiritual, living the eternal life, you have defiled yourselves with the blood of women, and have begotten children with the blood of flesh, and, as the children of men, have lusted after flesh and blood, as those also do who die and perish. This commission established Enoch as the first human prophet in the full sense, someone called to speak God's words exactly as received, regardless of how unwelcome the message might be. His role as messenger between heaven and earth was not just for his lifetime, but would extend through all generations as his written revelations preserved God's warnings and promises for future ages. Through this divine calling, Enoch became the bridge between the world before the flood and all subsequent history, carrying forward the testimony of God's justice and mercy through the greatest crisis creation had ever faced. His writings would serve as a permanent witness to both God's hatred of sin and his ultimate plan for restoration. After witnessing the corruption of the fallen angels and receiving God's judgment upon them, Enoch was granted even greater visions that would reveal the ultimate destiny of all creation. These weren't just glimpses of punishment for the wicked, but detailed revelations about the coming Messiah who would restore all things. Through 3 remarkable parables, Enoch saw how God's plan of redemption would unfold through a divine figure called the Son of Man, the Chosen One, and the Righteous One. This Messiah would not only judge the earth, but would reign forever in perfect justice, bringing about the resurrection of the dead and establishing an eternal kingdom where righteousness would dwell. The visions Enoch received went far beyond his own time, showing him the end of all ages and the beginning of God's eternal reign. In chapter 37 of the book of Enoch, a new phase of revelations began when he received his second vision. The text records, "The second vision which he saw, the vision of wisdom which Enoch the son of Jared, the son of Mahalaleel, the son of Canaan, the son of Enos, the son of Seth, the son of Adam, saw." This wasn't just another spiritual experience, but the beginning of the famous parables of Enoch, where the mysteries of the Messianic kingdom would be revealed in extraordinary detail. Enoch was transported to heavenly regions, where he witnessed preparations for universal judgment. What he saw surpassed anything human eyes had ever beheld. At the center of everything stood a majestic figure that chapter 47 describes. And the head of days sat on the throne of his glory, and the angels and the righteous stood around him. God's throne wasn't simply a seat of authority, but the cosmic center from which all justice emanated. Enoch observed how this throne was surrounded by thousands upon thousands of angels, each in perfect order and reverence. The atmosphere was one of solemn expectation, as if all creation was holding its breath for the moment when final judgment would begin. The vision revealed that God had been preparing for this day since the foundation of the world. Every wrong that had ever been committed, every cry of the oppressed that had risen to heaven, every act of rebellion against divine order, all of it was about to be addressed in perfect justice. The Ancient of Days wasn't acting in haste or anger, but with the deliberate precision of one who had planned every detail of redemption from eternity past. Enoch saw that this wasn't merely about punishment, but about the complete restoration of divine order. The chaos that had entered creation through the rebellion of angels and the corruption of humanity was about to be set right forever. The throne room of God was the command center for the most important operation in the history of the universe. As Enoch continued to observe the heavenly court, his attention was drawn to another figure of tremendous significance. Chapter 46 provides the crucial details. And there I saw one who had a head of days, and his head was white like wool, and with him was another individual whose countenance was like the appearance of a man, and his face was full of graciousness, like one of the holy angels. This second figure wasn't just another angel or heavenly being, but someone who possessed both divine and human characteristics. When Enoch asked his angelic guide about this mysterious person, the answer would change. His understanding of God's plan forever. The guide explained, "This is the Son of Man who hath righteousness, with whom dwelleth righteousness, and who revealeth all the treasures of that which is hidden." The Son of Man wasn't a created being who had earned his position through good works or faithful service. Instead, chapter 48 reveals his eternal nature, and at that hour that Son of Man was named in the presence of the Lord of Spirits, and his name before the head of days. Yea, before the sun and the signs were created, before the stars of the heaven were made, his name was named before the Lord of Spirits. This revelation showed Enoch that God's plan of redemption wasn't an afterthought or emergency response to the fall of angels and corruption of humanity. Before the first star was lit or the first day dawned, the Son of Man had already been chosen and prepared for his role as both judge and savior. His very existence bridged the gap between heaven and earth, between divine justice and human need. The Son of Man possessed attributes that belonged to God alone, yet he was also described in terms that related to humanity. This wasn't a contradiction, but the perfect solution to the cosmic problem of sin and rebellion. Only someone who was fully divine could execute perfect justice, yet only someone who understood human nature could show appropriate mercy. Chapter 49 continues the description. For he is mighty in all the secrets of righteousness, and unrighteousness shall disappear as a shadow and have no continuance, because the elect one standeth before the Lord of Spirits, and his glory is for ever and ever, and his might unto all generations. One of the most startling revelations Enoch received concerned what would happen to those who had died in faith before the coming of the Son of Man. Chapter 51 addresses this directly. And in those days shall the earth also give back that which has been entrusted to it, and Sheol also shall give back that which it has received, and hell shall give back that which it owes. This wasn't speaking metaphorically about spiritual awakening or symbolic rebirth. Enoch saw a literal resurrection where the bodies of the righteous dead would be restored and reunited with their souls. The text continues. For in those days the elect one shall arise, and he shall choose the righteous and holy from among them. For the day has drawn nigh that they should be saved. The resurrection wouldn't be a general raising of all the dead, but a selective calling forth of those who had remained faithful to God despite persecution and hardship. These righteous individuals had often died without seeing God's promises fulfilled, but they wouldn't be forgotten in the day of restoration. Chapter 51 provides more details. And the earth shall give up those who are treasured up within it, and Sheol shall give up those who are treasured up within it, and the righteous and elect shall be saved, and they shall not thenceforth see corruption. The resurrection would reverse the effects of death itself. Those who had suffered physical decay in their graves would be raised with bodies that could never again experience corruption, disease, or death. This wasn't just restoration to their former mortal state, but transformation into something far greater. The process would be overseen personally by the Son of Man, ensuring that no righteous person would be overlooked or forgotten. Every grave would give up its treasure. Every hidden resting place would yield its sacred deposit. Death, which had seemed so final and defeating, would prove to be only a temporary sleep before the Great Awakening. This resurrection would serve as validation for all who had trusted in God's promises despite seeing no immediate fulfillment. Their faith would be vindicated, Their suffering would be shown to have meaning, and their loyalty would be rewarded beyond anything they could have imagined during their earthly lives. While the righteous would experience resurrection and blessing, Enoch saw a very different fate awaiting the powerful who had oppressed God's people. Chapter 62 describes their terror, "And the kings and the mighty and all who possess the earth shall bless and glorify and extol him who rules over all, who was concealed." The revelation of the Son of Man would strike fear into the hearts of earthly rulers who had thought themselves beyond accountability. These kings and mighty ones had used their power to crush the innocent, accumulate wealth through oppression, and set themselves up as gods among men. They had assumed their reign would continue forever. But chapter 62 continues with their shocked recognition. "For from the beginning the Son of Man was hidden, and the Most High preserved him in the presence of his might, and revealed him to the elect." The rulers would realize that all along there had been a higher authority they had failed to acknowledge. Their response would be one of desperate terror, as the text describes, "And pain shall seize them as a woman in travail, and they shall have pain to bring forth, when they see that Son of Man sitting on the throne of his glory." The very sight of divine justice personified would cause them unbearable anguish. The judgment wouldn't be arbitrary or cruel, but perfectly fitted to their crimes. Those who had shown no mercy would receive none. Those who had lived in luxury, while others suffered, would experience the full weight of their selfishness. Those who had worshipped power would see true power and understand their own insignificance. Chapter 63 records their futile pleas. "And they shall speak unto one another, Our souls are full of unrighteous gain, but it does not prevent us from descending into the flames of hell." They would finally understand that all their earthly accumulations meant nothing in the face of divine justice. The judgment of the mighty would serve as a cosmic reversal, where the last would be first, and the first would be last. Every injustice would be corrected, every abuse of power would be punished, and the true order of creation would be restored. Following the judgment of the wicked, Enoch witnessed the complete transformation of the earth itself. Chapter 45 describes this process. "And the earth shall be cleansed from all defilement, and from all sin, and from all punishment, and from all torment. And I will never again send them upon it from generation to generation and forever." This wasn't simply about removing corrupt people from the earth, but about purifying the very ground that had been defiled by violence and bloodshed. The earth itself had been corrupted by the presence of the giants and the teaching of forbidden knowledge by fallen angels. Every trace of this contamination would be removed. The purification would be thorough and permanent. Chapter 10 had prophesied, "And destroy all wrong from the face of the earth, and let every evil work come to an end, and let the plant of righteousness and truth appear, and it shall prove a blessing. The works of righteousness and truth shall be planted in truth and joy forevermore." The cleansing wouldn't leave the earth empty or barren, but would prepare it for something unprecedented in its history. Instead of being the scene of violence and corruption, it would become the perfect environment for righteousness to flourish. The very soil would be blessed, the atmosphere would be pure, and the foundations would be solid. Chapter 45 continues. "And then shall the whole earth be tilled in righteousness, and shall all be planted with trees and be full of blessing." The agricultural imagery wasn't coincidental. This would be a return to the fertility and abundance that had existed before sin entered the world. The transformation would affect even the climate and natural cycles. What had been cursed ground would become blessed earth, producing abundantly without the struggles and failures that had characterized farming since the fall of Adam and Eve. After the purification of the earth, Enoch saw the gathering of all righteous people from every age and nation. Chapter 62 describes this assembly. "And the Lord of spirits will abide over them, And with that Son of Man shall they eat and lie down, and rise up forever and ever. This wasn't just a temporary celebration or brief reunion, but the establishment of an eternal community where the righteous would dwell together in perfect harmony. Every barrier that had separated them in earthly life, nationality, language, social status, time period, would be removed. The congregation would include everyone who had ever lived righteously, from Abel the first martyr to the last faithful person before the final judgment. They would recognize each other not just as fellow believers, but as members of one great family that had been scattered throughout history, but was now finally united. Chapter 51 provides more details. And they shall be clothed with garments of glory, and these shall be the garments of life from the Lord of spirits. And your garments shall not grow old, nor your glory pass away before the Lord of spirits. The transformation wouldn't be merely spiritual, but would include physical bodies that were perfectly suited for eternal existence. These glorified bodies would never experience fatigue, disease, aging, or death. They would be recognizably human, yet infinitely enhanced. The congregation would exist in perfect fellowship with the Son of Man himself. There would be no more separation between heaven and earth, no more barrier between the divine and human realms. The original purpose of creation, for God to dwell with his people, would finally be fulfilled. The unity among the elect would be complete and permanent. All the conflicts, misunderstandings, and divisions that had plagued human relationships would be resolved in the light of perfect truth and love. The culmination of all Enoch's visions was the establishment of the Messiah's eternal kingdom. Chapter 69 describes the scope of his authority. And there was great joy amongst them, and they blessed and glorified and extolled, because the name of that Son of Man had been revealed unto them. This kingdom wouldn't be like earthly governments that rise and fall, experience corruption, or face external threats. It would be established by divine power and maintained by perfect justice. The Son of Man would rule not through force or manipulation, but through the willing submission of hearts that had been transformed by his love. Chapter 49 reveals the character of this reign. For he is mighty in all the secrets of righteousness, and unrighteousness shall disappear as a shadow and have no continuance. Evil wouldn't simply be suppressed or contained, but would be completely eliminated from the kingdom. The government would operate on principles that had never been fully implemented in earthly kingdoms. Perfect justice would be administered without corruption or favoritism. Perfect mercy would be shown without compromising righteousness. Perfect wisdom would guide every decision without the possibility of error. Chapter 67 describes the peace that would characterize this kingdom. And in those days the angels shall return and hurl themselves to the east upon the Parthians and Medes. They shall stir up the kings, so that a spirit of unrest shall come upon them, and they shall rouse them from their thrones. But this would be the last disturbance before eternal peace. The kingdom would be truly eternal, without end or succession. There would be no need for elections, revolutions, or changes of administration, because the perfect ruler would reign forever. His kingdom would never decay, never face internal rebellion, and never be conquered by external enemies. All creation would find its ultimate purpose and fulfillment in this kingdom, where righteousness would dwell forever. In the final revelation of the parables, Enoch learned about the complete knowledge that would be given to the righteous in the eternal kingdom. Chapter 46 speaks of the Son of Man as one who revealeth all the treasures of that which is hidden. Throughout history, human knowledge had been limited and often corrupted. The fallen angels had taught forbidden knowledge that led to destruction, while much beneficial knowledge remained hidden from human understanding. In the kingdom, all truth would be revealed without danger or corruption. The righteous would understand the complete plan of God from creation to consummation. Every question that had puzzled them during earthly life would be answered. Every mystery that had seemed impossible to solve would be clarified. Every apparent contradiction in God's dealings would be resolved. Chapter 48 describes this revelation. And he shall be the light of the Gentiles and the hope of those who are troubled in heart. The knowledge wouldn't be merely intellectual satisfaction, but would bring perfect understanding of God's love and justice. The wisdom wouldn't be given gradually or partially as it had been on earth, but would be complete and immediate. The righteous would have the mental capacity to receive and process infinite truth without being overwhelmed or confused. Chapter 69 concludes, "And wisdom is poured out like water, and glory faileth not before him for evermore." This wisdom would be like an inexhaustible fountain, always fresh, always abundant, always perfectly suited to every need and situation. The revelation of complete truth would be one of the greatest joys of the eternal kingdom, satisfying the deepest longings of every heart that had sought to understand God's ways during the trials and mysteries of earthly existence. As Enoch's prophetic visions reached their climax, he was shown the final chapter of human history, a time when heaven and earth would converge in the most dramatic events ever witnessed. These weren't distant, abstract concepts, but vivid revelations of how God would bring all things to their appointed end. The visions revealed specific signs that would herald the approach of the final judgment, cosmic disturbances that would shake the very foundations of creation, and the ultimate moment when the heavens themselves would be torn open to reveal the Son of Man in all his glory. Through these final revelations, Enoch saw how every promise of God would be fulfilled, every injustice would be corrected, and every faithful heart would be vindicated in the great consummation of all ages. In chapter 80 of his prophecies, Enoch received alarming visions about the disruption of celestial order that would signal the approach of the end times. The text records, "And in the days of the sinners the years shall be shortened, and their seed shall be tardy on their lands and fields, and all things on the earth shall alter and shall not appear in their time." This wasn't mere poetic language about difficult times, but literal descriptions of how the fundamental laws governing creation would begin to break down. The sun, moon, and stars that had maintained their courses since the foundation of the world would start to deviate from their appointed paths. What had been reliable and predictable for thousands of years would become chaotic and unpredictable. Chapter 78 provides more specific details. "And many chiefs of the stars shall transgress the order prescribed, and these shall alter their orbits and tasks, and not appear at the seasons prescribed to them." The stars that had served as signs for seasons, navigation, and timekeeping would no longer function according to their original design. The disruption wouldn't be gradual or subtle, but dramatic enough to be noticed by everyone on Earth. People who had depended on celestial movements for agriculture, travel, and religious observances would find themselves confused and disoriented. The very foundations of their understanding about how the world worked would be shaken. Chapter 80 continues, "And the whole order of the stars shall be concealed from the sinners, and the thoughts of those on the earth shall err concerning them, and they shall be altered from all their ways. Yea, they shall err and take them to be gods." The cosmic disruptions would have spiritual as well as physical consequences. As people lost their understanding of natural order, they would turn to false explanations and idol worship. The breakdown of creation's harmony would lead to the breakdown of truth itself among those who had already rejected God. These celestial signs wouldn't be random cosmic accidents, but deliberate signals from the Creator that the end of the current age was approaching. Just as Noah had been warned of the coming flood, the disruption of heavenly order would serve as a warning to prepare for even greater changes ahead. While the heavens were being disturbed, Enoch saw that the earth itself would experience unprecedented upheavals. Chapter 83 describes his vision. "And I saw in a vision how the heavens collapsed and were borne off and fell to the earth." This represented not just physical disasters, but the complete breakdown of the barrier between the spiritual and material worlds. Earthquakes would increase in frequency and intensity beyond anything previously recorded. Chapter 60 describes, "And the earth shall tremble and shake to its foundations, and the high mountains shall be made low, and the hills shall be dissolved like wax before the fire." These wouldn't be isolated natural disasters, but part of a global transformation that would reshape the entire planet. The weather patterns that had remained relatively stable throughout human history would become chaotic and destructive. Storms would arise with unprecedented fury. Floods would devastate regions that had never experienced them, and droughts would affect areas that had always been fertile. The predictable cycles of rain and sunshine that enabled agriculture would be disrupted. Chapter 100 provides additional details. "And in those days the desolate mother shall go forth far beyond her children, and the beautiful land shall become desolate, and the flourishing olive tree shall be desolate." The earth's ability to sustain life would be dramatically reduced as natural systems collapsed under the weight of divine judgment. Plagues and diseases would spread with unprecedented speed and severity. Conditions that had been easily treatable would become fatal, and new ailments would appear that would baffle medical knowledge. The very air and water would become contaminated in ways that would threaten all living creatures, but these earthly signs wouldn't affect everyone equally. Chapter 96 reveals, "And the righteous shall not fear the wicked, for God will again deliver the righteous into their hands, that they may execute judgment upon them." The faithful would be supernaturally protected even as chaos reigned around them. The purpose of these earthly upheavals wouldn't be merely punitive, but would serve to separate those who truly trusted in God from those who relied on earthly security. When all human systems failed, only those with genuine faith would find peace and protection. Among the most disturbing visions Enoch received were those showing the spiritual condition of humanity in the final days. Chapter 91 describes this period. "And after that there shall be another, the 8th week, that of righteousness, and a sword shall be given to it, that a righteous judgment may be executed on the oppressors, and sinners shall be delivered into the hands of the righteous." But before this final week of righteousness would come a time of unprecedented spiritual darkness. Chapter 94 records the warning. "Woe to you, ye sinners, for your riches make you appear like the righteous, but your hearts convict you of being sinners, and this word shall be a testimony against you for a memorial of your evil deeds." This apostasy wouldn't be characterized by obvious atheism or blatant rebellion, but by a subtle corruption that would make evil appear good and good appear evil. People would maintain religious language and practices while completely abandoning the substance of faith. They would honor God with their lips while their hearts were far from Him. Chapter 96 continues, "And in those days the righteous shall be patient, and the elect shall pursue the path of truth, and shall not oppress the orphan or the widow." True believers would be recognized not by their claims or appearances, but by their actions toward the most vulnerable members of society. The apostasy would be led by those in positions of religious authority who would corrupt the very foundations of faith. Chapter 89 describes them symbolically. "And I saw till horns grew upon those lambs, and the ravens cast down their horns, and I saw till there sprouted a great horn of one of those sheep, and their eyes were opened. These false leaders would promote teachings that contradicted the clear word of God, leading many astray through cleverly crafted arguments and appealing promises. They would deny fundamental truths about sin, judgment, and the need for redemption, while maintaining their positions of influence and respect. The result would be widespread confusion among believers about what constituted authentic faith. Chapter 104 warns, "Fear not the sinners, ye righteous, for again will the Lord deliver them into your hands, that ye may execute judgment upon them according to your desires." But even during this time of apostasy, there would be a faithful remnant who would maintain true faith despite persecution and pressure to conform. These would be the ones who would be preserved through the final trials and would witness the glorious return of the Son of Man. As the end times approached, Enoch saw that spiritual warfare would intensify beyond anything previously experienced. Chapter 69 provides details about the increased activity of demonic forces and the names of the holy ones who dwell on the earth and believe in the name of the Lord of spirits forever and ever. This wasn't just about individual temptation or personal spiritual struggles, but about systematic deception on a global scale. The fallen angels and their demonic offspring would be given greater freedom to influence human affairs as God's restraining hand was gradually lifted in preparation for final judgment. Chapter 54 describes their release. "And I looked, and turned to another part of the earth, and saw there a deep valley with burning fire, and they brought the kings and the mighty and began to cast them into this deep valley." The manifestation of these dark powers wouldn't be hidden or subtle, but would become increasingly obvious even to those who had previously denied spiritual realities. Signs and wonders would be performed that would deceive many, leading them to believe that supernatural power validated false teachings and corrupt leaders. Chapter 65 records, "And in those days Noah saw the earth that it had sunk down, and its destruction was nigh. And he arose from thence and went to the ends of the earth, and cried aloud to his grandfather Enoch." The spiritual darkness would be accompanied by an increase in violence and immorality that would exceed even the conditions before the flood. Human behavior would become increasingly bestial as people gave themselves over to their basest instincts without restraint. But the manifestation of dark powers would also serve God's purposes by revealing the true nature of evil and the ultimate powerlessness of Satan against divine authority. Those who had been deceived by subtle temptations would see evil in its full horror and would have opportunity to repent before it was too late. Chapter 67 concludes, "And Michael answered and said to Raphael, the power of the Spirit transports and makes me tremble because of the severity of the judgment of the secrets, the judgment of the angels. Who can endure the severe judgment which has been executed, and before which they melt away? Even the holy angels would be amazed at the extent of divine judgment required to deal with the full manifestation of evil in the last days." In the midst of unprecedented chaos and spiritual darkness, Enoch saw that the faithful remnant would cry out to God with a desperation and intensity never before experienced. Chapter 47 records, "And in those days shall have ascended the prayer of the righteous and the blood of the righteous from the earth before the Lord of spirits." These wouldn't be comfortable prayers offered in peaceful circumstances, but desperate pleas arising from extreme persecution and suffering. The righteous would find themselves surrounded by evil on every side, with human help unavailable and natural support systems completely broken down. Chapter 9 provides the content of their prayers. "And now, behold, the souls of those who have died are crying and making their suit to the gates of heaven, and their lamentations have ascended and cannot cease because of the lawless deeds which are wrought on the earth." The living righteous would be joined in their prayers by the souls of those who had died in faith, creating a chorus of intercession that would ascend directly to the throne of God. The combined voice of all the faithful throughout history would unite in pleading for divine intervention. Their prayers wouldn't be selfish requests for personal comfort or earthly prosperity, but passionate appeals for God's justice to be revealed and His promises to be fulfilled. They would pray for the vindication of righteousness and the punishment of wickedness that had been delayed for so long. Chapter 22 records God's response to these prayers. Here their spirits shall be set apart in this great pain till the great day of judgment and punishment and torment of those who curse forever, and retribution for their spirits. There He shall bind them forever. The intensity of their prayers would reflect not just personal distress, but a deep understanding of the cosmic battle between good and evil that was reaching its climax. They would pray with the full knowledge that the fate of creation itself hung in the balance. Chapter 1. 103 provides encouragement. Be hopeful, for aforetime ye were put to shame through ill and affliction. But now ye shall shine as the lights of heaven, ye shall shine, and ye shall be seen, and the portals of heaven shall be opened to you. Their faithful prayers would be heard and answered, not necessarily by immediate deliverance from suffering, but by the assurance that God's perfect timing was about to be revealed in the most dramatic intervention in history. The climax of all. Enoch's visions was the moment when the barrier between heaven and earth would be permanently removed. Chapter 1 describes this cosmic event. And behold, He cometh with 10,000s of His holy ones to execute judgment upon all, and to destroy all the ungodly. This wouldn't be a gradual process or symbolic spiritual event, but a literal tearing open of the heavens that would be visible to every person on earth. The sky itself would be rolled back like a scroll, revealing the glory of God that had been hidden since the fall of Adam. Chapter 14 provides more details. And I looked and saw therein a lofty throne. Its appearance was as crystal, and the wheels thereof as the shining sun, and there was the vision of cherubim. And from underneath the throne came streams of flaming fire, so that I could not look thereon. The opening of the heavens would reveal not just light and glory, but the very throne room of God with all its awesome majesty. Every creature would see the source of all authority and power that had been governing creation from the beginning. The revelation wouldn't be pleasant for everyone. Chapter 62 records the reaction of the wicked. And pain shall seize them as a woman in travail, and they shall have pain to bring forth when they see that Son of Man sitting on the throne of His glory. But for the righteous the opening of the heavens would be the fulfillment of every hope and the answer to every prayer. They would see their Redeemer coming in power and great glory, surrounded by all the hosts of heaven. Chapter 71 describes Enoch's own experience of this realm. And it came to pass after this, that my spirit was translated, and it ascended into the heavens. And I saw the holy sons of God. They were stepping on flames of fire. Their garments were white, and their raiment and their faces shone like snow. The opening would be permanent, not temporary. Never again would there be separation between the heavenly and earthly realms. The dwelling of God would be with humanity, and heaven and earth would be united forever. When the heavens opened and the Son of Man appeared, the most comprehensive judgment in history would begin. Chapter 90 records, And I saw till a throne was erected in the pleasant land, and the Lord of the sheep sat upon it, and the other took the sealed books and opened the books before the Lord of the sheep. This judgment wouldn't be limited to those alive at the time, but would include every person who had ever lived. The resurrection would bring all the dead back to face final evaluation of their lives and eternal assignment of their destiny. Chapter 51 describes the process. And in those days shall the earth also give back that which has been entrusted to it, and Sheol also shall give back that which it has received, and hell shall give back that which it owes. The judgment would be perfectly, just because it would be based on complete knowledge of every thought, word, and action. Nothing would be hidden or forgotten. Every secret motivation would be revealed, every hidden deed would be exposed, and every person would receive exactly what their life had deserved. Chapter 45 details the scope, and this is the second parable concerning those who deny the name of the dwelling of the holy ones and the Lord of spirits. And into the heaven they shall not ascend, and on the earth they shall not come. The separation would be absolute and eternal. Those who had chosen righteousness would be welcomed into the eternal kingdom, while those who had chosen rebellion would be banished forever from the presence of God and all that is good. But the judgment would also reveal God's mercy in ways that would amaze even the righteous. Many who had seemed to live ordinary, unremarkable lives would be shown to have been heroes of faith. Many acts of kindness that had been forgotten by humans would be remembered and rewarded by God. Chapter 62 concludes, "And the righteous and elect shall be saved on that day, and they shall never thenceforth see the face of the sinners and unrighteous." The judgment would bring perfect closure to history's greatest questions about justice, meaning, and the ultimate triumph of good over evil. Following the universal judgment, Enoch witnessed the establishment of something entirely unprecedented, a completely new heaven and earth. Chapter 91 prophesies, "And the first heaven shall depart and pass away, and a new heaven shall appear, and all the powers of the heavens shall give sevenfold light." This wouldn't be a renovation or improvement of the existing creation, but something entirely new that would surpass the original creation in every way. All the corruption and decay that had entered through sin would be completely eliminated and replaced with perfect order and beauty. Chapter 45 describes the transformation, "And it shall come to pass in those days that the elect and holy children will descend from the high heaven, and their seed will become one with the children of men." The new creation would be the permanent dwelling place of both God and redeemed humanity. There would be no more separation between the sacred and secular, no more distinction between heaven and earth. Everything would be holy because everything would be permeated with the presence of God. Chapter 10 provides more details, "And then shall the whole earth be tilled in righteousness, and shall all be planted with trees, and be full of blessing. And all desirable trees shall be planted on it, and they shall plant vines on it, and the vine which they plant thereon shall yield wine in abundance." The new earth would be incredibly productive and beautiful, surpassing even the Garden of Eden in its fertility and perfection. Every plant would flourish, every harvest would be abundant, and every aspect of the environment would contribute to joy and satisfaction. Chapter 58 concludes, "And the righteous shall be awake, and knowledge and understanding and prudence shall be given to them." The inhabitants of the new creation would have perfect knowledge and understanding, never again struggling with ignorance, confusion, or error. The new creation would be eternal and unchanging, never subject to decay, disaster, or disappointment. It would be the perfect fulfillment of every hope and dream that had sustained the faithful through all the trials of the old creation. Through these final visions, Enoch saw that every tear would be wiped away, every wrong would be made right, and every promise of God would be fulfilled in ways that exceeded the greatest expectations of faith. As we reach the end of this incredible journey through Enoch's prophetic visions, we stand amazed at the scope and grandeur of what this righteous man was allowed to witness. From his first glimpse into the heavenly realms to his final visions of the new creation, Enoch saw the complete story of God's plan for humanity, a story that spans from the corruption of the Watchers to the ultimate triumph of righteousness. These weren't just ancient tales or mythological stories, but powerful revelations that speak directly to our world today. The signs that Enoch saw, the breakdown of natural order, the increase of violence and corruption, the apostasy of the last days, are unfolding before our very eyes. The cosmic battle between good and evil that he witnessed is still raging, and each of us must choose which side we will serve. But perhaps most importantly, Enoch's visions give us hope. They show us that no matter how dark the world becomes, no matter how powerful evil seems to be, God's plan will ultimately prevail. The Son of Man will return, justice will be established, and those who have remained faithful will inherit an eternal kingdom that surpasses anything we can imagine. The day is coming when the heavens will be torn open, when every knee will bow, and when every tongue will confess that righteousness has triumphed. The question is, will you be ready? Will you be counted among the elect who have chosen to walk with God? Or will you be among those who are caught unprepared when that great day arrives? Enoch's message to us across the centuries is clear. The time to choose is now. The time to repent is today. The time to align our lives with God's eternal purposes is while we still have breath in our bodies. If this incredible journey through the book of Enoch has opened your eyes to truths you've never seen before, if it has stirred your heart to seek God more earnestly, then don't keep this revelation to yourself. Share this video with your friends and family. Help others discover these amazing prophecies that were hidden for so long, but are now being revealed in these last days. Make sure to subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell so you won't miss future revelations from God's Word. There are still so many mysteries to uncover, so many prophecies to explore, and so many truths that can transform your understanding of God's plan for your life. The great vision of Enoch isn't just ancient history, it's your future. It's the destiny that awaits every person who chooses to walk in righteousness and faithfulness. Don't let this moment pass without making your decision for eternity. Subscribe now, share this video, and join us as we continue to explore the depths of God's prophetic word. Your eternal destiny may depend on the choice you make today.